All India Radio presents Morning News. Good morning. I am Sarabjit Kaur and with me is Saira Mujtaba. The headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says India to create modern education system where learning process is constantly redefined and redesigned to match global best practices. States should take advantage of Agriculture Infrastructure Fund for the benefits to reach small and marginal farmers, says Union Agriculture Minister Narendra Singh Tomar. India's COVID-19 vaccination coverage crosses 70 crore mark. CBDT amends income tax rules to ease authentication of electronic records submitted in faceless assessment proceedings. Government constitutes task force and expert committee to prepare roadmap for coal-based hydrogen production. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh approves delegation of financial powers to armed forces for revenue procurement. Taliban announces caretaker government in Afghanistan. Mullah Hassan Akhund to be the acting Prime Minister. Mullah Abdul Ghani Baradar to be one of the two Deputy Prime Ministers. National Security Advisor Ajit Doval to hold talks with Russia's Security Council Secretary on evolving situation in Afghanistan. In US Open tennis, Canadian teenager Leila Fernandez sets up semi-final clash with second seed Ariana Sabalenka in women's singles. Daniil Medvedev also enters last four of men's singles. As the nationwide free COVID-19 vaccination campaign at government facilities for those above 18 years is going on, we advise our young listeners to get vaccinated and also help others get vaccinated. We also advise our listeners not to lower their guard as COVID-19 remains a threat to our health. Please stay at home unless it is essential to go out and continue to follow these three simple steps. Wear a face mask, maintain 2 gaz ki duri for social distancing, focus on hand and face hygiene. For any COVID-related information and guidance, contact National Helpline numbers 011-2397-8046 and 1075. As our nation celebrates the 75th year of independence, a series of events are being organized by the government as a part of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. To commemorate the occasion as a Jan Utsav, All India Radio News brings its listeners a special quiz on India's freedom movement and its glorious history. The quiz is being conducted every Monday and Tuesday in the morning news since 16th August and will continue till 15th August 2022. India Post has joined hands as the logistics partner with All India Radio News for the Amrit Mahotsav quiz. Recalling our yesterday's question, who founded the Free India Society? The correct answer is Vinayak Damodar Savarkar. He was a committed revolutionary, renowned freedom fighter and an eminent political thinker. With recommendations of Lokmanya Tilak, Savarkar applied for a scholarship for higher studies in London. He left for London in 1906. The same year, he started the Free India Society. AIR News got an overwhelming response from its listeners across the world, and the one lucky winner of the quiz is L. Devarajan from Tiruchirappalli in Tamil Nadu. The next question of Amrit Mahotsav quiz will be shared with listeners on Monday, 13 September. Celebrate 75 years of India's independence by participating in Amrit Mahotsav quiz with AIR News. And now the news in detail.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said there is a need to constantly redefine and redesign the teaching-learning process in order to make the education sector world-class. The Prime Minister stressed that in this rapidly changing era, the teachers also have to learn about new systems and techniques rapidly. He was speaking after launching multiple key initiatives in the education sector yesterday during the inaugural conclave of Shikshak Parv.
भारत के शिक्षक दुनिया में जहां भी कहीं जाते हैं अपनी एक अलग छाप छोड़ते हैं। इस वजह से आज भारत के युवाओं के लिए दुनिया में अपार संभावनाएं भी हैं। हमें आधुनिक एजुकेशन इकोसिस्टम के हिसाब से खुद को तैयार करना है और संभावनाओं को अवसरों में बदलना भी है। इसके लिए हमें लगातार इनोवेशन करते रहना होगा। हमें टीचिंग लर्निंग प्रोसेस को लगातार रीडिफाइन और रीडिजाइन करते रहना होगा।
The Prime Minister said the government is tirelessly bringing vibrant changes to the education sector to change the face of education. He also called upon the private sector to come forward and contribute their bit in the education sector. The Prime Minister added, education should not only be inclusive but also equitable. He said that is why today the country is making technology like talking books and audiobooks a part of education. The Indian Sign Language Dictionary, an audio and text embedded sign language video for the hearing impaired in conformity with the universal design of learning, talking books which are audiobooks for the visually impaired, and school quality assurance and assessment framework of the Central Board of Secondary Education were launched on the occasion. Prime Minister Modi also launched Nishtha, a teachers training program for Nipun Bharat, and Vidyanjali portal for facilitating education volunteers, donors, and corporate social responsibility contributors for school development. The Prime Minister said Nishtha 3.0 will encourage competency-based teaching, art integration, and creative and critical thinking. The Prime Minister expressed hope that National Digital Educational Architecture, NDIA, is going to play a big role in eliminating inequality in education.
Union Agriculture Minister Narendra Singh Tomar has urged the states to take advantage of the Agriculture Infrastructure Fund so that benefits can reach small and marginal farmers who lack warehousing and cold storage facilities at the farm gate. The Agriculture Minister Narendra Singh Tomar was speaking on the second day of the Chief Minister's Conference yesterday on initiatives and schemes of the ministry. The minister emphasized that the Agriculture Infrastructure Fund is set up to drive infra investments and will facilitate and give thrust to speedy sanctions through a user-friendly online portal. Speaking about the Digital Agriculture Mission, the minister stated that farmers' database is our wealth and will usher in focused program delivery, reducing seepages, better policy formulation and smart farming in the country. He informed that database with 5.5 crore farmers is ready and the work is in progress for verifying others with land records. The minister also informed that the Union Cabinet recently approved National Edible Oil Mission for palm oil with focus on the northeast regions and Andaman and Nicobar Islands. He added that through this, the production of edible oils will be accelerated in the country, thereby reducing the import of edible oils. Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal, while addressing the conference, said the central government is working in close alignment with the state governments to transform the future of farmers. The Ministry of Coal has constituted a task force, an expert committee, to prepare a roadmap for coal-based hydrogen production. On India's 75th Independence Day, the Prime Minister had announced a hydrogen mission, and coal is one of the important source of hydrogen making. The task force will be headed by Additional Secretary in the ministry. Its broad terms and reference include identification of role to be played by each stakeholder ministry, monitoring of activities towards achieving coal-based hydrogen production, and setting up subcommittees to achieve the objective. On the other hand, the expert committee will be headed by Director General of the Federation of Indian Petroleum Industry, R.K. Malhotra. Its terms and reference include identifying experts in India and co-opting as members desk-based review of progress in hydrogen technology and also review ongoing research projects in hydrogen technology.
Central Board of Direct Taxes, CBDT, has amended the income tax rules to ease authentication of electronic records submitted in faceless assessment proceedings. The Finance Ministry said electronic records submitted through registered account of the taxpayers in the income tax portal shall be deemed to have been authenticated by the taxpayer by electronic verification code. The move will ease the process of authentication of electronic records in faceless assessment proceedings. In a landmark achievement, India's COVID-19 vaccination coverage has crossed the 70 crore mark. The Union Health Ministry said around 54 crore vaccine doses have been administered as the first dose and over 16 crore vaccine doses were given as the second dose. More than 67 lakh vaccine doses were administered till 7 p.m. yesterday. Health Minister Mansukh Mandavia congratulated the entire country and healthcare workers for the achievement of 70 crore landmark milestone. He said the last 10 crore COVID-19 vaccine doses were administered in just 13 days.
Gujarat has administered more than 5 crore doses of COVID-19 vaccine till now. Quoting the State Health Department, our Ahmedabad correspondent reports that nearly 6 lakh people were vaccinated in the state yesterday. More details from our Ahmedabad correspondent.
Gujarat has achieved the new milestone in ongoing vaccination drive against COVID-19. According to the official sources, the state has crossed the 5 crore mark in its vaccination drive. This also includes a second dose to more than 1 crore 32 lakh people. Meanwhile, Gujarat has recorded 18 new cases of COVID-19 yesterday. 21 patients have been recovered and discharged from various hospitals. The state has 149 active cases at present. Yogesh Pandya, Air News, Ahmedabad.
In Telangana, the School Education Department has instructed private schools not to remove any child who lost their one parent or both the parents to COVID-19 from the school on account of non-payment of tuition fees or lack of uniform or learning material. The government also directed private school management not to increase any kind of fee during the academic year 2021-22. The state government issued Standard Operating Procedures SOPs for reopening of all schools, both public and private, for regular classes in the wake of the ongoing pandemic. More details from our correspondent.
The School Education Department of Telangana has issued standard operating procedures for both public and private schools so that the COVID protocols and other socio-economic aspects of education will be properly taken care of as the offline classes begin after many days. As per the SOPs, students willing to study from home should be allowed to do so, and school management should not compel any student to physically attend offline classes. They should not impose penalty on any child for not attending offline classes. The SOPs also asked school management to ensure COVID-appropriate behavior by all students and staff, not to hold assembly, group works and games until further orders. Among others, sharing of items like pens, pencils, erasers, books, food, water bottles, glasses and plates among the students also prohibited. Lakshmi, AIR News, Hyderabad.
You are listening to the morning news on All India Radio. A reminder of the headlines before we move on. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says India to create modern education system where learning process is constantly redefined and redesigned to match global best practices. States should take advantage of Agriculture Infrastructure Fund for the benefits to reach small and marginal farmers, says Union Agriculture Minister Narendra Singh Tomar. India's COVID-19 vaccination coverage crosses 70 crore mark. CBDT amends income tax rules to ease authentication of electronic records submitted in faceless assessment proceedings. Government constitutes task force and expert committee to prepare roadmap for coal-based hydrogen production. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh approves delegation of financial powers to armed forces for revenue procurement. Taliban announces caretaker government in Afghanistan, Mullah Hassan Akhund to be the acting Prime Minister, Mullah Abdul Ghani Baradar to be one of the two Deputy Prime Ministers. National Security Advisor Ajit Dobhal to hold talks with Russia's Security Council Secretary on evolving situation in Afghanistan. And in US Open Tennis, Canadian teenager Leila Fernandez sets up semi-final clash with second seed Ariana Sabalenka in women's singles. Daniil Medvedev also enters last four of men's singles. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on our Twitter handle @AIR News Alert.
Defence Minister Rajnath Singh has approved delegation of financial powers to armed forces for revenue procurement. The primary focus of the enhanced delegation of financial powers is to empower field commanders and below to procure equipment and warlike stores in a speedy manner for urgent operational necessities and meeting essential sustenance requirements. A general enhancement of up to 2 times has been approved for the competent financial authorities. Delegated financial powers of vice chiefs of the services have been increased by 10%, subject to an overall ceiling of 500 crore rupees. The Defence Ministry said last such enhancement at all levels for the defence services was done in 2016. The Taliban group has announced its caretaker government in Afghanistan. The all-male interim cabinet will be headed by Mullah Hassan Akhund as acting Prime Minister. Akhund belongs to Kandahar and led the group's leadership council, which directed insurgent attacks against the United States and allied forces during nearly 20 years of war. Reclusive Taliban chief Habibullah Akhundzada will be the supreme leader of the government. While sharing details of the caretaker cabinet at a news conference in Kabul last evening, Taliban chief spokesperson Zabihullah Mujahid said all the appointments were in an acting capacity and that the heads of various other ministries will be appointed soon. Mullah Abdul Ghani Baradar, head of the group's political office, will serve as one of the two deputy prime ministers in the interim government. Baradar led talks with the United States and signed the deal that led to America's final withdrawal from Afghanistan. Mullah Abdul Salam Hanafi will be the other deputy. Sirajuddin Haqqani, who is the head of the notorious Haqqani network, designated by the United States as a global terrorist organization, will get the portfolio of Interior Minister. The announcement of caretaker cabinet came a day after the Taliban claimed to have conquered the northern province of Panjshir, ending the only armed resistance to their rule in the conflict-torn country. Hours before the announcement, Taliban fired into the air to disperse protesters and arrested several journalists. It was the second time in less than a week where the group used heavy-handed tactics to break up a demonstration. Meanwhile, as per media reports, 2 people were shot dead and 8 wounded in a protest against the Taliban in the western Afghan city of Herat. In Kabul, demonstrators gathered outside the Pakistan embassy to protest over Islamabad allegedly aiding the Taliban's assault on Panjshir province. Dozens of women were among the protesters yesterday.
The Secretary of the Security Council of the Russian Federation, General Nikolai Patrushev, will hold talks with National Security Advisor Ajit Doval in New Delhi on the situation in Afghanistan today. In a statement, Ministry of External Affairs said, Nikolai Patrushev is on a 2-day visit to India at the invitation of NSA Doval for high-level India-Russia intergovernmental consultations on Afghanistan. The Russian Secretary of the Security Council is also expected to call on Prime Minister Narendra Modi and External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar today. Consultations are a follow-up to the telephonic conversation between Prime Minister Modi and President of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, on the 24th of last month. The two leaders had expressed the view that it was important for the two strategic partners to work together and instructed their senior officials to remain in touch on the Afghanistan issue. As our nation celebrates the 75th year of independence, a series of events is being organized by the government as part of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. Now let's listen to our special program, Azadi Ka Safar.
Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav.
Azadi Ka Safar with AIR News. India's glorious fight for freedom is one of the greatest struggles the modern world has ever witnessed. AIR News brings you a glimpse of the valiant struggle every day.
On this very day in 1897, Lokmanya Bal Gangadhar Tilak was charged for sedition for his criticism of the British rule in his Marathi newspaper named Kesari.
This was an important moment in India's political history as it marked the criminalization of dissent as a grand spectacle of a political trial.
Tilak was charged for the publication of 2 texts, Shivaji's Utterances, a poem, and an unsigned report on the June 1897 Shivaji festival at which Tilak spoke.
In 1897, Chapekar brothers shot dead 2 British officers, namely the collector of Pune, Mr. Rand, who was responsible for the plague measures, and a young military officer.
This incident caused intense indignation among the Europeans and in the British government of India. It was pointed out that the murders of the 2 officers were the direct result of the incitement caused by Tilak's speeches and articles.
Due to prosecution's narrow legal interpretation, the texts were reduced to mean incitement of feelings of disaffection.
After 6 days of litigation, the jury announced Tilak guilty, and Tilak was sentenced to 18 months of imprisonment.
Incidentally, Tilak was imprisoned thrice under the sedition law by the British.
When the nationalists were waging a war against the colonial rulers, spiritualists lifted the morale of Indians and told the Western world about the greatest philosophy of Hinduism, thus garnering the support of the world for India's freedom.
One such spiritualist, Swami Abhedananda, was born on this date in the year 1866. He was a direct disciple of Swami Ramakrishna Paramhans. Swami Vivekananda sent Swami Abhedananda to the USA.
He went to the USA in 1897 as the head of the Vedanta Society of New York and preached messages of Vedanta and teachings of his guru. For about 25 years, he traveled far and wide to the United States, Canada, Mexico, Japan, and Hong Kong. After attending the Pan-Pacific Education Conference at Honolulu, he returned to India in 1922.
He also crossed the Himalayas on foot and reached Tibet, where he studied Tibetan Buddhism. He left for his heavenly abode on the 8th of September 1939, but his spiritual teachings continue to guide people on their spiritual journey.
Today is the death anniversary of Firoz Gandhi, who was a freedom fighter, journalist, and a parliamentarian. Firoz, who was born on 12th of September 1912 in a Parsi family, quit studies to take part in India's freedom struggle.
He was imprisoned in 1930 along with Lal Bahadur Shastri and was lodged in the Faizabad jail for 19 months. Soon after his release, he was imprisoned twice, in 1932 and in 1933.
Firoz Gandhi married Indira Gandhi in 1942. The couple were arrested and jailed in August 1942 during the Quit India movement, less than 6 months after their marriage.
Even after being allowed to report on the parliamentary proceedings and against the publication of any such proceedings, having started his career as a scribe, Firoz understood the importance of freedom of the press.
It is because of a private member's bill introduced by Firoz in 1956, it is possible for media to report parliament proceedings. Firoz died in 1960 in Delhi. That brings us to the end of this episode of Azadi Ka Safar AIR News ke Sang. See you in the next episode tomorrow.
As part of the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, AIR News is airing Nishan, a 75-episode program on landmark sites associated with the freedom movement. It is being broadcast every Wednesday in our Parikrama program at 4:45 p.m. In today's episode, we will bring you the historical importance of cellular jail, also known as Kala Pani, at Andaman and Nicobar Islands in the freedom movement of the country.
स्वाधीनता संग्राम के वे निशान जो साक्षी हैं हमारे सेनानियों के संघर्ष और बलिदान के। आकाशवाणी समाचार ला रहा है विशेष श्रृंखला निशान, हर बुधवार को शाम 4:45 पर कार्यक्रम परिक्रमा में FM गोल्ड 100.1 मेगाहर्ट्ज पर।
The Delhi University has said every student getting admission to the university will have to plant a sapling and take care of it. The students have to also submit the progress report of the plant after 6 months. This program has been launched under the social responsibility of the university towards the environment. According to the notification, the Delhi University said each student should plant at least one native tree species in his or her native place or place of stay. The students have to submit the GPS site location along with the picture of the plant to the respective college from the upcoming academic session.
On to sports now. In US Open tennis, Canadian teenage sensation Leyla Fernandez produced another fearless performance but defeating 5th seed Elina Svitolina of Ukraine 6-3, 3-6, 7-6, 7-5 to reach the women's singles semi-finals. In a run to her first major semi-final, unseeded Fernandez has beaten defending champion Naomi Osaka, 2016 winner Angelique Kerber, and now Olympic bronze medalist Svitolina. Fernandez has set up the last 4 clash with second seed Aryna Sabalenka on Friday. The Belarusian Sabalenka defeated French Open champion and 8th seed Barbara Krejcikova of Czech Republic in quarterfinals 6-1, 6-4. Sabalenka will be playing her first ever US Open semi-final. In men's singles, world number 2 Daniil Medvedev has entered into the semi-final after defeating Dutchman Botic van der Zandschulp 6-3, 6-0, 4-6, 7-5 at Flushing Meadows. The Russian is into the last 4 of the US Open for the 3rd straight year.
And now let us take a look at the weather forecast for today. The national capital Delhi will have a generally cloudy sky with light rain. Mumbai will have generally cloudy sky with heavy rain. Chennai, the temperatures will vary between 25 and 34 degrees Celsius. Kolkata, the minimum temperature 26 degrees, maximum around 32 degrees. Hyderabad is expected to have generally cloudy sky. Bengaluru, the temperatures will hover between 20 and 27 degrees Celsius.
And now an overview of today's newspapers. Most newspapers today lead with the latest news on Afghanistan. Hindustan Times writes, Taliban name caretaker cabinet under Akhund. With the government likely to file affidavit after consulting officials, Supreme Court agrees to adjourn hearing of pleas for Pegasus case probe, writes The Hindu. The Financial Express under the caption, Come 2022, writes, companies likely to hand out better salary hikes. Following the recent amendments to the retrospective tax law, Kane, ready to settle India dispute, take $1 billion refund, is a lead in the Times of India. With hope that if the experiment succeeds, other countries may follow suit, El Salvador makes Bitcoin legal tender, writes the Asian Age. And finally, in a move to revive the population of the extinct big cat, MP's Kuno National Park to be home to cheetahs in 6 months, informs Hindustan Times.
And now, before we end the bulletin, the headlines once again. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says India to create modern education system where learning process is constantly redefined and redesigned to match global best practices. States should take advantage of Agriculture Infrastructure Fund for the benefits to reach small and marginal farmers, says Union Agriculture Minister Narendra Singh Tomar. India's COVID-19 vaccination coverage crosses 70 crore mark. CBDT amends income tax rules to ease authentication of electronic records submitted in faceless assessment proceedings. Government constitutes task force and expert committee to prepare roadmap for coal-based hydrogen production. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh approves delegation of financial powers to armed forces for revenue procurement. Taliban announces caretaker government in Afghanistan, Mullah Hassan Akhund to be the acting Prime Minister, Mullah Abdul Ghani Baradar to be one of the 2 Deputy Prime Ministers. National Security Advisor Ajit Doval to hold talks with Russia's Security Council Secretary. In US Open tennis, Canadian teenager Leyla Fernandez sets up semi-final clash with second seed Aryna Sabalenka. And with that, we end the morning news. Have a nice day.